Nau mai, haere mai, kake mai, ki te whare karakia, Kumu Baptist Church Online. Kia ora te whānau, ko te wiki o te reo Māori. Nō reira, mā tātou kōrero Māori tēnei rā. Ka kōrero ahau katahi, e muri te rā, ka kōrero koutou. Ka taia tātou te ako e te reo Māori. Kei te taia ahau, engare kia kaha te reo Māori. Ka kōrero taku pēpeha. I whānau mai ahau, i Kenya, i Nairobi, i tupu ake ahau i Aotearoa. Kei Te Awaroa Helensville, i noho ana. Ko raumatangi o Te Awaroa, te maunga e tau ai taku nākau. Ko kaipara ta moana e poipoi nei i taku whānau. Ko Naomi tōku ingoa, he kaitohu o OutWest Youth ahau. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā anō rā tātou katoa.
Kia tau, kia koutou, te atawhai me te rangamārie e o te atua. Mā te atua koutou e whakau, ki te pono me te hare. Kia noho a ihoa kia koutou, mā ihoa koutou e manaki. Kōrero tātou. Ko te rā tēnei I hanga te ariki. Kia hare, kia koa tātou.
Kia ora anō. Welcome to the OutWest Youth Update section of our service this morning. For those of you who don't know, OutWest Youth is a youth trust based in Te Awaroa, Helensville. We work with the rangatahi across our area and work quite closely with Kumu Baptist Church. Hence our opportunity to update every month about some of the work that we do. Friday night just gone, we had an event of a Zoom prayer, joining with other youth workers from around the country to pray for the youth of Aotearoa. And thank you for any of you that came along to that. Appreciate you being there. In preparation for that, we put together a few short videos, which we're going to now show you as part of the update for OutWest Youth this month. Kia ora.
Kia ora. One of the things that young people have taught me in my years working as a youth worker is to whakarongo, to listen with your whole being and to be present and to love the space that you're in and the people that surround you. Kia ora.
Malo whānau, my name's Thomas. Just want to share one of the things that I really enjoy about working with youth. That is those random moments where they let you into how their brain works and their whakaaro. Like, for example, you're just chilling somewhere and then all of a sudden they're like, gee, what do you think about dinosaurs? It can be super deep or super random, but just in that moment you get that tiny little insight into their mind, and I love it.
Morele, kia ora, I'm Davita from OutWest Youth. The reason why I like working with rangatahi is being given the opportunity to kind of support them and encourage them to kind of overcome some of the challenges and issues that they face. Also as well is about kind of helping them achieve some of their goals.
I love working with young people in a practical setting, as it is empowering for them and equipping them really well for their future.
With young people, I love the sense of humour and fun.
When I invest positively in the life of a young person, it's not just for them now, but it's for everybody that their life touches in their future.
And that's just stay fresh, stay creative, stay hungry, stay young, keep learning. Youth are just so full of that, and it teaches you to be full of that as well.
E te reki, you've called us to join your mission for the world. This includes sharing the good news, supporting one another to grow in our faith, demonstrating compassion, justice, and care for your creation. Show us how we might find opportunities to fulfill this call, even while in level 4. To reach out to others, to stand alongside, to speak out for justice and peace, to share the good news of a hope-filled future, and to practice hospitality, even with our current restrictions. Kōrero tātou, say together. E te atua aroha, whakarongo mai ki tā mātou inoi. E te reki, we pray for the frontline workers in this pandemic. Nurses, doctors, supermarket workers, security guards, government leaders, social workers, organisations that supply kai to those who are in need. The list is endless. We thank you for the service of these people, and we ask for your blessing upon them. Keep them safe from sickness, from violence, from distress. Look after their whānau and give them time away from the front line to rest and recuperate. Kōrero tātou, say together. E te atua aroha, whakarongo mai ki tā mātou inoi. E te reki. We pray especially for the youth in our community. So often our prayers are petitions for you to meet their need and solve their problems. We do ask for this, but we also thank you for the many things they teach us because of their youth, the way they can challenge our preconceptions and are so often prophetic voices for change and growth in us individually and in the community. In our interactions with youth this week, we welcome you to speak through them to us. Give us ears to hear your spirit in their words, and we pray that we, whatever our age, will respond with grace and openness. Kōrero tātou, say together. E te atua aroha, whakarongo mai ki tā mātou inoi.
Hello and welcome to our next thrilling episode of Live from the Hay Barn. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, it has fallen upon me to bring you the first session in our study of the book of the story of Gideon. Now, you might think, what is there in the story of Gideon apart from the fleece and that thing with the jars and the lanterns? Well, having gone through this, I found that there's actually quite a lot, and you'll be learning quite a lot more in the weeks to come. So let's start from Judges chapter 6, verses 1 to 24. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites and other eastern peoples invaded the country. They camped on the land and ruined the crops all the way to Gaza, and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep nor cattle nor donkeys. They came up with their livestock and their tents like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count them, or their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord for help. How often do we leave it to the point of desperation before we ask for help? When the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you live, but you have not listened to me." The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, whose son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive." Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you." And the Lord said, "I will wait until you return." Gideon went inside, prepared a young goat, and from an ephah of flour he made bread without yeast. Putting the meat in a basket and its broth in a pot, he brought them out and offered them to him under the oak. The angel of the Lord said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on this rock, and pour out the broth." And Gideon did so. Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the bread and the meat, and the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, Alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the Lord face to face. I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die." So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it, "The Lord is Peace." To this day it stands in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. Israel's in trouble. Some while ago they chased out a load of people and occupied the land. I'm guessing that there were also a large number of nomadic tribes too, who, like Abraham, roamed across the vast wilderness that stretches eastward towards Babylon, as well as north and south. Canaan might have been their summer pasture, somewhere where there was still a bit of water and some grass before they could move out again when the rains returned. And Israel had put the block on that. So, for a bit of background info, coming from northern Arabia, we have the Midianites. From the southern deserts of Israel, the Amalekites. From the area just over the Jordan, the Amorites. And with them, other tribes from the east. There were probably quite a few other peoples that had merged with them and were collectively known by the same names. And it seems that they had joined forces and decided that it was now time to get their pastures back. Hence we've reached a point where it doesn't really matter whether you call them Midianites, Amorites, or something else. They were now one amorphous blob, and they covered the land. And they devastated it. All the crops wiped out, and the livestock. Just perhaps a few sacks of grain that they managed to carry up into the hills, and a few animals that they could squeeze into the high pastures. So we find Gideon in a wine press, threshing wheat. Now, I do have a wine press next door, but they wouldn't let me thresh wheat in that. So for now, we've got a hay barn. He was doing that in order to keep it, to hide it from the Midianites, who had stripped the land bare. I'm guessing it wasn't a big harvest. Probably a few buckets of seed that he'd managed to keep hidden and grown in a quiet little valley out of sight. Normally, you use oxen and a heavy sledge to thresh wheat. You spread out the wheat in a thick layer and walk the oxen round so that the sledge rolled over the wheat and separated the grain. But that would have been too obvious, too much noise from the oxen. Perhaps they didn't have any left. And too many people involved that you'd need to help spread it and sweep it. So he's in a wine press with a pile of wheat and a rolling pin or something like it. I bet there's stuff going through his head. Wish I could do that to them Midianites. Why? What happened? What of all the stuff that happened when we crossed the Jordan? If God won't help us, who can? What's the use? Why can't God send us a hero? Guess there's no one strong enough. Why? There's someone there. Guess he's not one of them. He's seen me. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. And there you have it. That's the entire message in 7 words. We could end the sermon there. But it took Gideon a bit longer to process it. So Gideon gets up and does his best to be polite. So what's the first question in his head? Why? After all the promises and the miracles, where's God? But the man doesn't answer that. Instead, he goes straight to the point, to the solution. Basically, he's just expanding on the same message. Go in the strength you have. You are the chosen hero. You are the one who will save Israel. And then he says something that should have given Gideon a clue. Am I not sending you? Perhaps Gideon didn't realize that it was God speaking. Probably didn't look like his idea of God. But then who else could this guy be? There wasn't any king. Nobody was in charge of Israel. Nobody else was coming to the rescue. And here's this man, talking like he had great authority, yet appeared to be completely alone. Gideon's confused, so he tries another question. How? I've got no influence. Nobody thinks much of our family, and besides, nobody in my family thinks much of me. How on earth could I raise an army when the best I could give them is a couple of buckets of seed? And the Midianites, there's thousands of them, they're everywhere. And then the angel has to tell him straight, I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. So not only is this lone guy talking like he has immense authority, but also immense power. And more to the point, confidently predicting the outcome. Gideon is still confused. But he's beginning to twig. He knows he has to act fast. Is it really you talking to me? Can you bring me a sign? Perhaps I'll go get an offering. And so he runs off and finds a young goat. Dang, wasn't it supposed to be a ram? I haven't got a ram! And what was the grain offering? 1/10, 2/10. He knows this is it. He won't get another chance. So he takes the whole sackful, 16 kilos, that's an effer. And he cooks it as fast as he can, and he heaves it all back. He probably needed help carrying it. And so the man tells him to put it down on a nearby rock, and makes fire come out of the rock, which flares up and consumes the lot, and the man vanishes. Gideon is terrified. He's heard the stories about Nadab and Abihu getting burned up when they tried to bring an unauthorized offering. If it happened to the sons of Aaron, what hope did he have? And he cries out to God in terror. But God speaks. Of course you're not going to die. What? After all I've just told you? Gideon's mind is still in turmoil, but I'll leave that for the next couple of sermons. What's important to us is the process that he went through. It's easy to see things from hindsight. This passage was written from hindsight, in a time when the answer was obvious. Much of the Old Testament was put together in the years after captivity, when they had the time to look back and uncover the warnings that God ignored and the attitudes that led them astray. But when you're in the thick of it and the culture around you colours everything you hear, it's often hard to see the wood for the trees. So the angel comes to visit Gideon, and in one sentence gives him the answer he needs. But Gideon doesn't get it. It takes him a while to twig. Angels come in shapes and sizes. This one presumably looked very human and ordinary. So Gideon's a bit confused. God's okay with our confusion. There's plenty of other examples in the Bible. He knows that we don't get it, and that's okay. He's patient, and he's ready to help us understand. Gideon has stuff to process first. His first question is a big one. It's the question we all have to deal with. Why? Why did this happen? Why so much suffering? Why didn't God step in to take it away? Why did he let it happen in the first place? Why did God make a world where people suffer, get sick and die? God made the world. I think we're pretty much all together on that one. Quite when and how is a matter of debate. But it was all planned. And it was good. Very good. And he could have left it there, all ticking like clockwork. But it would have been meaningless. A world without darkness has no shadows. A life without danger has no need for hope. A people without insecurity have no need for love. it would have been flat and colourless, mechanical. So God gave us free will, the ability to choose. And he knew it would all end horribly, that our collective selfishness would twist our decision-making until we trapped ourselves in a world of chaos and decay. But it had to be done. He created a world that would need his love, and he had to plan to save it. A plan that cost him dearly, because the only way to fix it was to step down and take all that chaos on himself on the cross. So Gideon asks the next big question. How? Here he is, some little guy from some small town hiding in a wine press. How could he defeat the Midianites? How could he persuade anyone that they stood a chance? How? He's not the only one who asked that question. Moses did. Mary did. And there were plenty more. Because in our tiny minds, in our tiny world, it's just impossible to grasp who God is. God answers the question, I will be with you. There you have it. You put infinity into the equation. Anything is possible. End of story. Something that we find so hard to grasp, but we have to see things from God's perspective. He is unlimited by time and space. He can see the end from the beginning. We have to understand that his plans are so much bigger than ours. It's so easy to drift back into our limited worldview and plan only with the things we see. It's hard to understand why God would allow things to happen when we can't see what's on the other side of the wall. His ways are not our ways, and he had to turn our whole thinking upside down to get us the right way up. We could spend all year on those two questions, but I haven't got that much time. So to wrap up, we need to become less and let God become more. He has great plans, and the biggest obstacle is the small minds of his people. It's okay to be confused, and we should not be afraid to ask the big questions, but we need to learn to look from God's perspective and have the faith to walk with God, allow God to use us, multiply our obedience, and let the great plan happen. Thank you.
Karoria ki te matua, ki te tama, ki te wairua tapu, mai I te tamatanga, ki tēnei wā a haere ake nei. Āmene.
Haere I runga I te rangamari e. I runga I te aroha me te nākau hihiko ki te mahi te araki. We say together, Amene. Ka haere mātou I runga I te ingoa o te karaiti. Ano? Again? Amene. Ka haere mātou I runga I te ingoa o te karaiti. Ka kite ano.